Welcome to another episode of Unquestionably Raw. And once again, we are joined by Keith Smith. Keith, happy to have you here tonight.
Hey, happy to be here, Matt. Hopefully Pete's baby's coming and all's going well in his world.
Oh, yeah. So, let's get off and start with Domantas Motiejunas. It looks like the Nets are going to be offering him a contract sheet, an offer sheet. So you got any news for us on that?
Yeah, it sounds like what was reported is that the Nets are going to make him an offer. We don't know what the terms are yet. We're not even entirely sure when that offer is going to come. Sounds like that's going to come early this next week, so probably somewhere in the Monday, Tuesday range. And then the Rockets will have 3 days to match that once the offer sheet is signed. And it's really going to depend if the Rockets match or not on what the terms of the offer are. The Nets do have quite a bit of cap space left for this season, so they can make a pretty big offer to Motiejunas, and we'll see what happens with that if they're going to really extend something that the Rockets won't sign. What's kind of funny is if they don't get Motiejunas, if it does go through and then the Rockets match, that's 3 restricted free agents the Nets will have put offer sheets into this year that they won't have gotten after Tyler Johnson and Allen Crabbe earlier this year.
What's the word around the NBA on whether the Rockets will match or not?
It's going to depend on what the terms are, is what I've heard. So the number of years and then the guaranteed money in it and how much that money is. So if it's much north of $10 million annual average value, they may not be inclined to match that. The Rockets may want to go in a different direction. If it's under that and it's at all team friendly, there's really no reason for the Rockets to match. One other piece that kind of makes it a little bit interesting for the Rockets is that they have a full 15-man roster right now, and they like all 15 of the guys that they have, so they're going to have to waive somebody. It's likely to come down to Kyle Wiltjer or Bobby Brown. Brown would seem to be the easy choice, but he's their insurance in case Patrick Beverley suffers another injury, and he's missed quite a bit of time in the past, as well as he's very well liked and very well respected in their locker room, and he's very tight with James Harden. So it may not be as cut and dry for Brown to go. It could be Wiltjer goes if they do match.
Okay, outstanding. Now, I know we were going to talk about this Wednesday, but we didn't get a chance to. So I guess on the True Hoop podcast, they played a little excerpt of Stan Van Gundy, and essentially it was about resting guys. And I mean, of course, Stan, we play our guys. We pay him we pay him to play 82 games. He said other coaches are going to do what they want to do, what they think is best. And he specifically mentioned Tom Thibodeau saying, he didn't understand all the complaints that people were giving Tibbs for playing his guys all those minutes. But Stan basically said, look, guys, he did what he had to do to win games. You can't fault him for that.
Yeah, and, every coach is going to come at it a little bit different. I think Popovich, he's been there, 20 years now? He's earned the rope to do really whatever he wants with his team, and he has a way he believes you should manage a team, and that's you should give guys rest. And then you've got guys like Van Gundy and Tibbs who believe guys should play if they're healthy. Tibbs this year, he's got such a young roster, they should be able to handle quite a few minutes, so that shouldn't be too big of a challenge. My fear for both of those guys, though, is what happens when you get to the playoffs and your guys are run down because they've already gone, 80-plus games. And, and they're maybe hurting a little bit and not, as healthy as maybe they could have been if they sat out a night or two to get a little bit of rest. So,
and we saw it when Thibodeau was in Chicago. We saw the effect that all those minutes had on guys, especially guys like Joakim.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you got to wonder, would Noah maybe have another couple of years left of a productive career if he hadn't been so worn down. And it's kind of funny because Tibbs has worked under Jeff Van Gundy, who he didn't drive his guys too hard, and then he worked under Doc Rivers, who Doc was big on making sure his guys got enough rest and those kind of things. So it's a philosophy that different coaches have, and it sounds like he's going to push his guys as hard as he can, and it sounds like he's on board with that. The nice thing is, from a fan, it is nice to know I pay all this money for a ticket, I'm going to go, and if the guy can play, the guy's going to play.
Well, if you're a Detroit Pistons fan and you want to see Andre Drummond, if he's not hurt, you're going to see him play. You don't have to worry about him sitting.
Absolutely. And I do I can't think of who it is. I want to say it's it might be Charles Barkley maybe, or it could be maybe Jalen Rose or somebody has this philosophy on sit guys when they're at home games so that those fans have an opportunity to get back again and see them, that you should never sit guys on road games, especially when it's, a West Coast team coming east or an East Coast team going west, and it's one time through the building. But I think coaches are more concerned with who's tonight's matchup versus tomorrow's matchup. Do we have back-to-backs? What does it look like? We have 4 and 5 nights. Those kind of things is what they're looking at more than where are we. But, it's going to be this way. You're always going to have those people who believe in it, and you're going to have those ones who don't. And,
and ultimately,
I'm not sure there's a right or wrong answer.
And ultimately, the fans sometimes lose. Especially if you're a Golden State Warriors fan. You live in Orlando. They come once. That's the game Curry sits. That's always tough. You spent that money. Johnny wanted to see Stephen Curry play, but it is what it is. It's.
Hey, I was in the building now. I was in the building last year when Kobe Bryant sat out his farewell game in Orlando. He didn't play. And we're like, oh man, last chance to see Kobe, and that was rough. But hey, these guys, the coaches, like I said, they're gonna do what they think is best for their team, and they don't really care what anybody else thinks.
Very good stuff. Now we're gonna touch on a couple of last night's games. We won't stay on it too long for everybody, but your thoughts on the Clippers and the Cavaliers last night? Clippers pulling it out.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see the Clippers play so well. They came out with a sense of urgency. They got after it early in the game. They were running pick and roll to death, and they ran every imaginable combination of the pick and roll. They were running Griffin and Paul early, and Blake got a bunch of little jumpers right from the free throw line area. Then they were running Paul and Jordan. Then they started running Griffin and Jordan, the big pick and roll, which because of Griffin's passing ability, you can get away with that. And then they started running that Griffin-Redick pick and roll, which is using Redick as the screener, which is absolutely devastating when Redick's hitting shots because the big doesn't want to get all the way out there on him. And if they do switch it, then Griffin just takes the guard down into the post and punishes the guy. So it's that really, you could see Cleveland didn't have an answer for any of that.
No.
The Clips got after it defensively. They were chasing Cleveland off of the three-point line and forcing them into going into mid-range shots because Cleveland wouldn't attack the rim at all, which was very weird. It was almost like one of those I would have said Cleveland was just kind of throwing it away and didn't really care. But Cleveland lost the other night to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. I think it was the Clippers had been on that little slide, and I think they were determined we got to get back on the right track and get this one tonight here in Cleveland. And they went at them hard.
Yeah, what a game to get your confidence back. You beat the defending champions, and you hope that this carries over, because they've got the Warriors coming up on Wednesday in Los Angeles, and we know what a rivalry that's been the last couple years. So, for all fans involved, we want to get, let's hope the Clippers can keep this up so they can give us another classic game, but you always wonder with the Clippers. You just never know. Are they going to slide and be that team that lost 3 in a row? You just don't know with these guys. That's why it's hard to say, are they really an elite team? Because every time you think they are, boom, they revert back to the dumb Clippers.
The funny thing is we won't know, and no one will decide that until we get to the playoffs anyway. So outside of them completely falling apart and, finishing in like 5th or 6th, or lower, it's not going to matter what they do much in the regular season. It's going to be all about it. Did they get to the playoffs and what happened from there?
And to be fair, last year was not a collapse. You lose your 2 best players. You lose Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, you're probably going to get knocked out of the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that really wasn't a collapse. Now, the year before against the Rockets, everybody knows about that. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully they can hold it together this year. Now, on to Golden State and the Rockets. I was actually not surprised the Rockets won this one. The Rockets, I had a feeling they'd get up for this one. And Ryan Anderson, absolutely fantastic for Houston. Offense, all the offensive rebounds, hitting step back, jump shot, knocking down his threes. He was fantastic.
Yeah, and Eric Gordon too was great off the bench. Those 2 guys, we know what they can do, right? They're knockdown shooters. And as long as they're healthy, playing off James Harden, they're going to have a great year. It all depends on can they stay healthy the whole season. If they can't, Houston's going to be in trouble because Houston's bench has played well, but it's because they've mostly stuck to the same 4 guys off the bench.
Mhm.
And if they have to go much deeper than that, there's a pretty steep drop off.
Oh yeah.
But as far as last night goes, boy, they were terrific. Harden really took that game over late.
And Montrezl Harrell was really good last night.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and he had that huge dunk.
Yes.
The game, and he looked really well. And Nene didn't play. Assuming that was just a rest thing for him. They haven't been using him too many nights in a row. All around, I thought Houston played really well. The big thing I noticed was it wasn't. I think if you just looked at the box score, you'd say, "Wow, nobody played any defense." But it was more they were playing at such a high pace, and of course the 2 overtimes helped quite a bit. But it was probably, for my money, probably the best game of the year so far.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Curry hit he got up. They got up 4 points, and the Rockets came back. And I noticed last night the Warriors couldn't. Every time they get a 2-point lead, a 3-point lead, a 4-point lead, they never could extend on the Rockets.
Yeah.
And that bench for the Warriors, when they had to really go to the bench, it was bad last night. The Rockets just took advantage of it.
Yeah, well, Iguodala played 42 minutes off the bench last night, and that's not you don't want him playing, putting much more than 22 minutes a game at this point in the year. So that's really tough. And you pointed out something good with the Warriors is their depth is not great.
No.
David West hasn't given them, I think, quite as much as they'd hoped for. I think they were hoping he'd give them that Murray Spates production. JaVale McGee has been JaVale McGee. He's, kind of flighty out there. Ian Clark's been terrific. He's been really good. Sean Livingston's had some struggles this year.
Yeah.
So
do you see a move coming for them to kind of bolster that bench a little bit?
Here's the thing: is I think they would love to, but who are they going to deal? They don't have any tradable contracts really. That they would be willing to trade. Everybody is on either a minimum deal or they need them. So that's going to be the hard thing. I think they're probably going to have to wait until after the trade deadline and get guys on the buyout market.
Yeah.
When that comes around, because they don't have enough pieces to put together to make a trade. That's that's the byproduct of having to gut the roster to sign Durant.
And I don't think my guess is they probably at this point wouldn't want to trade Kevon Looney or Patrick McCaw.
No, definitely not. Definitely not McCaw. They love what he brings, and he's shown some flashes of developing into a big time bench scorer eventually in the league. Once he really knows what he's doing out there, and then Looney, I think he's an important depth piece for them, especially when you kind of get in the dog days of the season, right before the All-Star break and coming right out of it, and you're in the middle of March and just kind of playing out the string. They're going to need a guy like him who can give them some solid minutes. So it's probably what you see is what you have for the Warriors until we get into buyout season, and then that's definitely any veteran that gets bought out is going to be looking to latch on to them to try.
And we're absolutely not in panic mode with Golden State. They are 16-3. I mean, every other roster, pretty much would love to have these guys. So
12 straight wins and a loss at home to another very good team.
Exactly.
I'm not worried about that one.
Exactly, where Stephen Curry fouls out at the very beginning of the second overtime. Klay Thompson has a crappy shooting night. It happens.
Yeah, talk to us on Christmas when they've probably won another 10 or 12 in a row. And
that's the one everyone's waiting. Well, actually, I think Wednesday may be their real first test. And then the very next night, they get Utah.
Yep.
So this is going to be a big week coming up for Golden State.
Hopefully Utah can get healthy. That's the
once again, George Hill out last night. They lose again.
Yeah, and
Rodney
Hood out too.
Yeah. They just can't stay healthy. Hopefully,
Yeah.
This team's in trouble if they can't stay healthy. But now on to our last topic here. I told you guys we'd have a quick one for you tonight. Surprises and disappointments. And I kind of want to do it this way. Start off, we'll do surprising for players, then disappointment players, and then surprising teams, disappointing teams. So let's start off with surprising players.
Let's see. So we just kind of talked about him, George Hill. I knew he'd be good, and I knew he'd be a good fit for Utah. I just didn't expect him to be quite as good as he has been. He's been, an absolutely terrific player, and they're a completely different team without him. So he's probably my surprising player. I think he's just been that good for them, and like I said, knew he was a good player, but I didn't think he'd be quite this good for them.
Mm-hmm. And and one of my guys that I wasn't very high on this guy coming out into the draft this year, but Jamal Murray's probably one of my biggest surprises just because I didn't think he'd do anything. I was not very high on him, and boy, as he really showed me, I was completely wrong. He's been really, really good for Denver. Now, I know they've got is Barton and Harris close to being back or back?
Barton's going to play tonight. Harris is still out indefinitely.
Okay. What's that going to do? What does this do for Jamal Murray going forward now?
Yeah, that's the problem with Denver is they've got probably the deepest roster of actual NBA players of any team in the league. There's really 1 through 5. Well, I guess Mike Miller at this point is just kind of playing out the string. So outside of him, they don't have anybody who's not a legit NBA player, on their team. Like, Alonzo G's fine to be at the end of the bench, but every other guy that they have really needs minutes. They are just probably more so than any other team in the league screaming for a consolidation trade, and I just don't know what's out there for them to do that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Any other surprising players? I know we've touched on 2 here, Murray and George Hill.
Player-wise, I really like what a couple guys on the Grizzlies have done, Troy Williams and Andrew Harrison.
Yes.
Two rookies. Harrison was a domestic draft and stash, played in the D-League all of last year, and then Williams, an undrafted rookie. Both of them have shown me a lot more than what I expected them to do. They both look solid. They're starting now because of all the injuries in Memphis, but I think both have the potential to develop into real rotation players at some point over the course of the year. I really like Jabari Parker. I think he has stepped up and become that big-time scorer that I think we all hoped he would be. And, it's funny. Everybody wants to compare him to Carmelo Anthony. I think he's more explosive than Carmelo ever was.
Yes. Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, now he's not the shooter and scorer that Carmelo even is today. Definitely not what Carmelo was when he was at his peak. But Parker's been really, really solid. I love his game. And then the last guy I want to touch on is Mo Harkless. He's had a nice season up in Portland, really shot the ball well. Portland's got a lot of other issues, but Harkless has not been a part of that. So he's having a nice year, really earning that contract that he got this summer.
I think one more I'll go with, and none of us, you've mentioned it a few times, none of us saw it coming. We thought he was going to be waived, Nick Young.
Yeah, no, that's a great call.
Yeah, because this is a guy we all thought would be off the roster, out of the league, and he's come in, maybe been their best perimeter defender this year. We know what he can do offensively, so he's really been part of the reason they're 10-10 right now and sniffing in that playoff hunt. I know it's early. And now he's out, 2 to 4 weeks, I think?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so that's hopefully he can come back and pick up right where he left off. Now, disappointing players.
Yeah, disappointing players for me, it's some of these guys are guys I kind of expected to not be as good, but the number one guy on my list is Rajon Rondo. He just – I feel like he's been – I feel like he's done. I didn't think he'd be great for Chicago, and I didn't think he would be a great fit once the final roster was put together. So but he's been really bad this year. He's just not the player he used to be. So that's definitely a struggle. I feel like a little bit of a disappointing player in Oklahoma City is Steven Adams. I thought he would step up a little bit more than he has. Now, I think some of that is he's not necessarily getting the touches that I thought he would get. I'd like to see him touch the ball a little bit more and give him the opportunity to go to work. But he hasn't. I thought he might, move more into the 15, 16 point per game range this year potentially and really impact games and help give them an inside weapon, and that hasn't happened. And then my last one is a guy whose big contract just kicking in now is Andre Drummond. He just hasn't shown me any improvement. Seems like he's the same guy, even maybe a little bit of regression on the defensive end. I've watched a good amount of their games where it doesn't seem like he's always playing as hard as he should be on the court, and that's definitely a disappointment.
And he's just been kind of downright bad on the defensive end.
He has been.
And with all that athleticism he's got, it's kind of surprising. That's where sometimes numbers can be misleading. Like if you kind of look at just rebounding and all that stuff. You're like, well, he's a pretty good defender, athletic. But then when you actually watch the games, you see that it's not very good.
No, yeah.
And I know Stan's not liking that too much.
Yep.
And for me, I got a couple. Joakim Noah, all that money he got in New York. Now, granted, we weren't expecting him to be the guy he was when he was fourth in MVP voting, obviously, but he just really gives the Knicks absolutely nothing.
Nope.
They're almost better when he's out of the lineup. They've played it much better, which is actually surprising. Defensively, I gave a stat on Monday of all the guys defending the rim when he defends the rim. He's like last in the league.
Yeah,
guys are shooting like 67% when he's defending the rim. That's just awful. And you don't expect that with a guy like Joakim Noah. Another guy's been Evan Turner. This is a guy I thought would be pretty good for Portland. I thought we'd see, more of Lillard and McCollum both on the wings at the same time, letting Evan Turner, handle the ball, run them off of floppy actions and stuff like that. But, you're seeing him shooting some jump shots this year, and it hasn't been, I think what Portland wanted out of him. But, I guess part of it's the way they're using him. Now, they have let him handle the ball a little bit more recently, so hopefully that can keep up. And then one more, it's kind of a group. This year's rookie class overall has been just downright awful.
Yeah.
Which has been really surprising to me. Obviously you've got, Simmons hasn't played yet. Ingram, they're bringing him along slowly. But, I thought a guy that I thought was going to end up being really good was Buddy Hield. 4 years in college, but he really just has not adjusted to the NBA game. Now, he has put the ball on the floor a little better than I thought he would, but his three-point shooting has just been awful.
Yeah, and now he's out of the rotation.
Yeah, is he having trouble adjusting to that longer three?
I don't – it's interesting because I asked that question at Summer League if they thought that was going to be an adjustment, and they didn't think it was going to be a problem for him. They actually thought that might help him. Because he'd have a little bit more space to get it off. So they thought that might help him versus college where even, a packed-in zone is still going to get to the line fairly easily. So they thought that. But he hasn't looked comfortable to me from day one. I saw him play a couple preseason games, saw him live here in Orlando. Didn't look great. And then just watching this year, it looks like he needs more time to get comfortable and figure things out. And and now that the Pelicans are back to a modicum of health, they're starting to turn it around. So there's just no minutes available for him. I don't know when he's going to get them.
Yeah, and Tyreek Evans is coming back soon. So he's just, unless there's another injury, he probably won't play much this year.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what goes on with that. Now let's talk about some surprising teams now.
Yeah, surprising teams, definitely Chicago. For me, I didn't think they'd be very good, and they've been much better than I thought they would be. They're playing a funky style, and it's working. A style that doesn't necessarily work in the NBA supposedly anymore, but they're getting it done. I think Milwaukee has been better. They've really done well without Chris Middleton, who's a huge part of their team, and a lot of that is owed to Giannis just being so great, and then Parker stepping up his game. So they've been better than I thought. And then the last team that has been, we talked about them earlier today, but I've been impressed with the Clippers. I think they came out this year. They just seem much more serious this year right from the get-go. It doesn't seem like there's as much I don't want to call it goofing around because it wasn't really that, but they seem to have a sense of urgency. They're not, other than this, it caught them when they were in this slide, which will be interesting to see if they can reverse it now that they got this win in Cleveland. They weren't barking at the refs quite as much. It wasn't, every call it used to be, whether it was the guys on the floor or even Doc, everything was, a complaint. And now they've seemed to back off that a little. So I like what they've done too.
Absolutely. I guess I'll go with the Los Angeles Lakers. This is a team many people thought they'd be dead last in the Western Conference, and they're sitting at 10-10 right now. They're in the playoff picture. Yeah, we're only the fourth of the way into the season, but 10 wins. Who would have thought this team would have 10 wins at this point in the season? They've been fantastic. And another surprise for me, because I didn't think they'd be very good, just because I just hadn't had faith in the Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah, Conley's out now, but they were, before he went down, they were sitting at 10-5. I was really surprised at how good they've been. No, that's
a good one.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. So those are probably, and of course the Bulls. I mean, I didn't even have them in the playoffs. That roster, I think, that is Fred Hoiberg Coach of the Year consideration.
Yeah, we'll see. I think they're gonna have to win a lot more than they have been. I think they're gonna have to definitely get up above 50 for them to get that close. But it'll be interesting. I had to give you one more too because I got to eat crow on this. But this is, I think, strictly a surprise for me. I think everybody else thought they'd be good, and I just didn't think they'd play anywhere near enough defense to be good. And that's Houston. I was way down on the Rockets, and I've been completely wrong. And then when they started that whole what I termed as nonsense of Harden being a point guard, I didn't think that was going to work at all. And I was like, well, he's kind of the point guard already because he has the ball so much, but all he's going to do is shoot every time. And I'll say it now, I was completely wrong. They've been excellent.
And they're not as, like, when you actually watch them play, they're not as bad defensively as I think people think they are.
Not anywhere close, yeah.
No, they just play at such a fast pace. There's so many possessions. It looks like they're not playing deep. But they made a lot of key defensive stops last night when they needed to.
Yep.
They really got after it. And it's not just Patrick Beverley. Even James Harden is getting down and playing a little defense from time to time.
No, and you know what I'll say, too, is they're a good example of effort can make up for lack of ability. Because they don't have very good defenders. Their defenders are fairly, weak across the board. Capella's pretty solid. Ariza, he slipped quite a bit from where he was at one point in his career, but he's still not bad.
Yeah.
But then Harden, Anderson, Gordon, those guys aren't, known for the defense. Beverly's just working back. But what they're doing is they're all giving really solid effort, and they're executing the scheme well. You can see that they've gelled very quickly, which is really good to see. With so many new guys playing together, they're just big surprise for me. I had them pegged for missing the playoffs because I thought the defense was going to be that poor. And they've been really good this year, and it's going to be interesting. They could end up in the top 4 in the West now. I don't know if they'll catch the Clippers or the Spurs and Golden State, but and I think of all the teams that Golden State could possibly play in the second round, the Rockets are the team that could give them the most problems. Yeah, they're going to make them work. That's for certain.
Harden's going to be constantly in attack mode. I mean, if they get the bench effort and they're healthy, and Sam Decker was good last night for them. He's giving them really good minutes off that bench. So we'll see what they can do the rest of the season. Now for our final topic for the night: disappointing teams.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple, and I'm going to give them to you rapid fire. Orlando. I know you and I were in on them.
Yes.
They've been, unfortunately, their worst fears realized on the defensive end or on the offensive end. Defensively, they've been good, really good, and they're getting better on defense. The offense just hasn't been very good. They're starting to maybe make strides. Actually, I'll give a little promotion here. I put out a piece today on RealGM.com about some things the Magic could do to fix the offense, and it just gave you a couple ideas out there that I think are worth trying for them to fix. And then their Southeastern Division counterparts, the Washington Wizards, they've been terrible. I don't know what's going on with that team. The bench is awful. The starters, it doesn't seem like they can put together more than 1 or 2 games together where more than 1 or 2 guys has a good night. So it's just not a mix. I think they've got to really consider blowing that thing up and starting over. And then in the Western Conference, I'm going to go to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I didn't have super high hopes for them. I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. But I thought they'd be better than what they are. Their defense is so bad, and that third quarter, whatever it is for them, I don't know what it is that you can be so good in one half and so bad in the other. So I'm not sure. And then one I'm going to toot my own horn on because I was calling it from the get-go. I just had a feeling Indiana wasn't going to be very good, and it's been exactly what I thought. They've got too many guys who need the ball. They play too much, especially when they're all healthy. There's too much your turn, my turn, and those kind of things. The offense just looks disjointed, and the defense hasn't been very good. They're just not getting after guys the way they should. So,
Absolutely. I have to agree with you. Minnesota would be my number 1 disappointment just because I had them really high. I thought this could be a 5th, 6th place team in the West. I thought the defense, the pieces they have the tools to play defense. But as you said, it's just been terrible. They're just not playing any defense. And their third quarter collapses. That tells me that's just a lack of focus is what that tells me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's unlike a Thibodeau team. Now, obviously, maybe a lot of that can be credited to their youth. Hopefully they figure this thing out quick because they're going nowhere fast. It looks like we're another lottery pick for Minnesota, and hopefully Tim doesn't have a heart attack by the time the season's over because I know he can't stand this. Another disappointing team, my New York Knicks, a team I had second in the East. Now they're getting better. They're showing signs, and the good thing about the East is to get that number 2 seed, you're only 3 back in the loss column. So So the Knicks, if they can figure this out, if they can figure out, the whole thing with Carmelo Anthony, how he best fits the offense, play a little bit better defense. They have improved in it, which I think is why they're winning more. Because for the first few weeks they were dead last in defensive rating, and they've moved up. I think they might be like 24th or 25th now. So they're improving there. But yeah, this Knicks team is hopefully they can turn around and make me look good. But I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I told you guys we'd have a quick one, Lots of games to watch tonight. We got a pretty good slate. Keith, let everyone know where they can find you at.
Yeah, sure. You find me on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. I'll be live tweeting games throughout the rest of the season, and you can find my written work at realgm.com. I mentioned before I had a piece go up today on the Orlando Magic and fixing their offense. You can find Celtics-specific coverage at CelticsBlog.com. I have a piece that went up there today about some key dates. It's got a little bit of a Celtics slant to it, but it's good information for the league as a whole. If you're looking for when are things happening the rest of the year, what are some dates I need to kind of mark on my calendar as big things going on. And then daily on FanRagSports.com, the Skip Pass for this NBA section. It's our daily wrap-up column of all the previous day's action and around the league. So getting a lot of things out there, a lot of stuff. And with that, I do want to throw out there, we're thinking of Pete and his family, and hopefully all going well for him, and with the introduction of their little one to the world.
Absolutely, and he is here. It's a boy, Ashton Michael.
There it is.
Pete was in the chat room, so shout out to Pete and his little one. Now I want to. Yes. Let me remind everybody now, you can find us on iTunes, just podcast, Unquestionably Raw podcast. Subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. Give us a written review as well so we know how we're doing. If there's something you don't like, let us know. We're not a bunch of jerks. We like constructive criticism. We don't think we're perfect. We want to give you the best content possible. And if you're, watching us on the YouTube page, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page and hit the like button for us. Comment in there as well. Let us know how we're doing. And we will be back Monday again for our weekly power ranking episode. So until Monday night, see you later.